Out in the Oak Mountains of southern New Mexico, where the wind scrapes like sandpaper across stone, there's a silence so deep you can almost hear it breathing. The sun hangs heavy, the air is dry, and the land feels ancient. And there, against the horizon, is a fortress, weathered, haunted, waiting. This is Fort Stanton. It began as a military outpost, then it became a tuberculosis sanatorium, then a wartime internment camp, and finally a place where the forgotten lived out the rest of their lives. Through it all, war, sickness, despair, the walls stayed standing. And if you believe, the stories and the spirits stayed too. Because the ghosts of Fort Stanton, well, they aren't resting. They remember. I'm Candy, and I'm with my co-host, Raji. Welcome, Raji.
Hello, thank you very much.
Welcome. And today we're peeling back one of America's most haunted and heartbreaking places. Fort Stanton was established in 1855 by U.S. Army named Captain Henry W. Stanton, killed nearby in a skirmish with the Mescalero Apache. On the surface, it was everything a military outpost should be. Whitewashed walls, perfect parade grounds, rows of buildings, all neat military precision. But this neatness sat on land-soaked conflict. Buffalo soldiers were stationed here. Kit Carson himself passed through here. And yet, for every official battle dispatched, there were raids, forced relocations, families torn apart. The Mescalero Apaches were pushed from their land with broken promises echoing in their ears. Even then, locals whispered the ground held grudges, the kind that didn't fade with time. By the late 1800s, the military left, but the story was far from over. Fort Stanton was reborn, not for war, but for medicine. The U.S. government turned it into the nation's first federal tuberculosis sanatorium. TB, the White Plague, was a death sentence. There was no cure, only prescription of clean air, rest, and isolation. The old barracks became wards. The mess hall became a dining area for the sick. Wide porches were fitting with cots so patients could breathe the cold mountain air, even as the winter frost gathered on their blankets. Wow, imagine just sitting there and you're trying to breathe and you see the death too. That's crazy. So imagine rows of pale faces turned toward the horizon, knowing they'd never go home. That's like a death sentence right there. Some wrote letters never sent. Others quietly planned for the day they would be carried over to the small cemetery just over the hill. It wasn't long, though, before stories began. Call bells ringing from empty rooms, whispers when no one else was there, and the most enduring apparition, a woman in white, walking from the wards toward the cemetery at dusk, always alone, always vanishing before she reached the gates. During World War II, Fort Stanton changed again, this time into an internment camp. German and Japanese nationals, many of them civilians, some captured sailors, were brought here and accused of espionage without trial. Inside, life was suffocating. Letters home were censored. Rumors ran rapid. Guards kept watch, but suspicion lived in every corner. Some prisoners tried to escape into the desert. Few made it far. Some didn't survive at all. One man hanged himself in the supply a closet that today is part of the visitor center. So if you go to the visitor center, ask him where the guy that hung himself was. You might find something. Staff say the air is different, heavier. While visitors report doors opening on their own, the shuffle of papers in empty rooms, footsteps following them in silent hallways, and one caretaker swore he saw a man in a long coat walk into a room but never walk out. Creepy stuff. By 1966, the fort's purpose shifted again, becoming the Fort Stanton Hospital for the Training Center of the Developmentally Disabled. For decades, it housed children and adults who had been pushed out of sight and out of mind. Some were sent there for care, others because no one wanted them. The stories from this chapter are quieter, but no less haunting. Footsteps in empty wings, shadow figures watching from corners, voices calling out in the night, sometimes in Spanish, and sometimes in a language that no one recognizes. And this is the part of the story that's a little bit personal for me. So when I was a teenager, my mom worked with three men, Donald Helms, David Shunke, and Albert. I don't remember Albert's last name, but those were the three men who had once lived at Fort Stanton for the developmentally disabled. I remember their routines, the way their eyes sometimes looked far away. Even after years, the weight of the institutional life stayed with them. Knowing them taught me something. Behind every ghost story is a human story, and that is the true. That is so true. Behind every ghost stuff, there's a human behind it. So it makes
You
sense.
don't ever think of it that way either.
No, you just say, "Oh, there's a ghost," and you don't know
Yeah.
the story. Well, it always helps to know the story behind it and
Yes.
have a connection, a little bit better connection to it. So over
Yes.
the 30 years, Fort Stanton has been a magnet for investigators, such as ghost adventurers film there and ghost hunters walk the same halls. Local New Mexico teams have spent long nights in the fort's barracks and theaters. They've captured EVPs, whispers in Spanish and English, cold spots that appear on thermal cameras, child-sized handprints pressed into freshly cleaned windows, the sound of heavy boots pacing empty porches, and the fort's old theater is especially active. Props moving on their own, phantom applause, even the faint sound of a music box playing. So locals speak of a woman in white believed to be a nurse who died of TB but never left. They say she still comforts the lost and dying and guiding them towards peace. That's very nice. Not a lot of ghosts do that. So
Now, the wisest place so haunted.
well, some say it's the sheer accumulation of suffering, war, disease, confinement. Trauma leaves fingerprints, kind of like limestone does, energy.
Oh, yes.
Others,
Yes.
yes. And then I think too, others say it's the land itself that something in the mountains remembers every drop of blood spilled and every broken promise. But I think it has something to do with things that were there prior too. That was their land, and then they came in and just swooped it away. I mean, it's true, but when you walk through Fort Stanton, it doesn't feel like history is behind you. It feels like it's walking beside you. So it's
Do you
creepy.
think the place can still remember?
Absolutely. Not just, in a ghostly way. Places like Fort Stanton retain what happens to them. Every laugh, every scream, every cry, every last breath. So Donald, David, and Albert, the three men that we took care of that came from Fort Stanton, taught me that some scars are invisible, but they
Yeah.
never fit. True for everybody, not just, for the dead, but everybody has scars that we cannot see. So they all patience and kindness. I will never forget those three men who brought such joy to my life and to many, many others. They were so fun, but sadly, Donald Helms passed away. I'm not too sure about David or Albert, but I did know that Donald passed away a while back. So he was this dude. He smoked a cigarette, right? He's a smoker, and he liked his rings. And he would smoke a cigarette and still be on the cigarette. He smoked it all the way down. And people would lean way back.
Almost in like one breath?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, he was, and then the ash would stay. You know how sometimes the ash just falls off? This ash of his stayed on the cigarette. And
That's
then,
important.
yeah, I mean, he was a smoker. And he's funny, though. And then there was David Shunky. He had pica, which is they eat everything, whether it's bad for you or not, chemicals. You have to keep everything locked up. And this dude, I'll never forget, can like this, excuse the booze, but a can like this,
Hmm.
open and slaps it down and literally in under 5 seconds and it's gone. I was impressed. And then Albert would just come in and get on the couch like this and just chill. He was a chill person. He was quiet. So they're fun. I really enjoyed them and I missed them. So I hope the other two are still alive and hope they're doing well. And God rest Donald's soul.
Rest in peace.
Yes. Rest in peace. So the fort isn't just stone and wood. It's a living memory of everyone who passed through it. And I was lucky to know those three. When I think about Fort Stanton, I think about those men and I wonder maybe the real haunting isn't the ghosts we see, it's the stories we forget to tell, It's possible. So if you've ever been to Fort Stanton, if you've ever felt a shift in the air, heard footsteps behind you, or caught something out of the corner of your eye, go ahead and email me at halfhauntedpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok at Half Haunted Chronicles, YouTube Half Haunted Podcasts, because here on Half Haunted, it's not just about the ghosts. It's about the ones who never left and the ones they left behind. Until next time, stay curious and always stay haunted.